The altcoin markets are changing and there are better times on the horizon as crucial indicators have flipped in a positive way. In this video, I include them all and I discuss all the crucial indicators you need to watch. The first thing you need to realize is that there are multiple levels of movements within the market. So you have the macroeconomic game, then you are stepping aside from that into liquidity, for instance, and then you get into crypto intrinsic events. And all of these move the markets. And that's why it might be super hard for you to understand where the markets are heading to or what to look at and why certain markets are moving or moving the other way around. Like, for instance, right now, there's so much positive news surrounding crypto, but still Ethereum drops from $4,000 to $1,600 in the first quarter of the year. So that's why I've spent all the time researching the data to understand which tables are moving around for crypto to go into the right direction. And in that case, first you have the macroeconomic movements, and then you have the macro movements within crypto. So you have the geopolitical game that is moving the markets in the sense that Chinese currency goes up, blah, blah, blah. That is deciding risk on, risk off. Then we have liquidity that moves Bitcoin. Then we have the macro movements within crypto. So for instance, Ether moves and then the rest of the market continues to follow. And then we have hype or narrative driven movements within crypto. And the more confidence there is, the more it goes top down in terms of volatility in the markets. And that's how the markets are moving. And that's why we discuss all of them in this update. And the first thing is, of course, the macroeconomic tables. I'm going over this over and over again because I think it's the most important game for me to understand and to base my strategy from. Having no understanding of macroeconomics is going to harm my portfolio. And if we flip that, it can be very beneficial for me in the future when I need to get out of the markets, when I need to add which assets I need to go into. Because right now the question is to make the most out of this market. But at some point there is a question of where to actually go to keep on having my portfolio in balance. And all of that I would love to share on this channel. So I'm happy that you're here. If you do enjoy the content, make sure to leave a like beneath. I see that the views are going up. I see the comments. Thank you very much for that. But now you can help me out by growing this channel by simply liking and subscribing to this YouTube channel. Anyways, the first important chart is the fact that we have the Chinese renminbi versus the US dollar. And I keep on going back to this one. And the first chart you see is a chart that provides the bottom that we've seen at the beginning of April. And that first bottom signal was correlated with the price action on ETH. ETH bottomed on the exact same day. And the second chart that you see is the candles of the Chinese currency versus the US dollar and the price action of ETH versus Bitcoin. Every time in the past 9 years where the Chinese currency has bottomed out against the dollar, it was the bottom for ETH as well. In 2017, it bottomed out and ETH started to go into the bull cycle that we've witnessed. In 2019, it bottomed out and that was the bottom for ETH to go into a 2-year bull cycle. Now we have had the longest bear market, which we'll discuss in the upcoming updates as well. And we bottomed out last month, starting up a new cycle. And that's the exact same moment where ETH starts to move as well. So that's great. And the second macroeconomic factor that you need to take into account is the price action on gold. Gold is the actual factor for uncertainty. And if that starts to consolidate in line with the previous charts, that's an additional trigger that risk on appetite is going to be back. And this weekly candle is showing that we're likely peaking out with gold and have a correction on the horizon. As I've been going over this for a little while, it's up 30% for the year after going up 30% in the previous year. And that signals that we've seen a lot of upside, but that is getting skewed And that upside is getting skewed as there is a sudden change in the dynamics of the markets by Trump. Trump is the main driver of the markets at this point. And all of a sudden, during this week, he started to calm down a little. I think someone in his close neighborhood has said, mate, maybe China has a little bit too much power over us. We do not control everything. China and Japan control everything. Trump has said, let's fight these countries. And those countries answered with dumping the US treasuries, which increased the interest rates, which is the opposite of what he wants to achieve. And now he's squeezed in between. I love this chess game, but Trump has stated that he would like the tariffs to come down to 50 to 65%. And he decided not to fire Powell, which is good, which is calming down the panic in the markets. And that is also reversing the data that we've seen. As the fact is that the Chinese renminbi goes up, gold comes down, and risk-on assets start to do really, really well. And then finally, on this regard, the liquidity is also changing. It might become the biggest meme, but at least credits to Julien and Raoul for bringing up the topic. But Bitcoin's price is following liquidity to the dot. And if that continues to happen, we have the ideal cocktail for the markets to go up, as the liquidity is showing us that we're going to have a run towards a new all-time high during this quarter for Bitcoin. And when we look at the macroeconomic factors for the Chinese currency, it is going to additionally push an outperformance for the remainder of the crypto markets, alongside the fact that there's the regulatory approval in the US and the onboarding of DeFi in the traditional banking system. So on a macroeconomic playing field, it's great. And now we need to look at the tables within crypto to see if we have additional arguments and crucial indicators to see whether altcoins are going to move. We just discussed the macroeconomic factors, and now we also have indications or indicators within the crypto markets that are moving up or down and proving the fact that crypto is doing better or not. And I've just said that gold and the Chinese renminbi are the primarily indicators to see whether crypto as a whole, as a risk-on asset, does well. Now, you need to look at the prime indicator of the markets, which is Ethereum. Ethereum is still the biggest altcoin. Not really liking that statement, but it's the biggest coin outside of Bitcoin, and it moves basically everything in the markets, as most of it is built on top of ETH. And in the last week, we started to see the first real sort of strength on ETH. And it is pretty heavily correlated with the fact that in this same period, gold started to peak out, right? And you can see that this slight bump, it's the purple line, is ETH versus USDT, starts to go up. And then in the same time, we see gold correcting a little bit. And I think that the more gold starts to go down, the heavier the move on ETH up will be. At this point, there's still not that much confidence, but it's a first indication that we at least are going to have a little bit of momentum, and the momentum will start to build up. That's always how it goes. In the first period, you likely will see a lot of people saying, I don't trust it. Even if Ethereum is going to be at $3,000 again or higher, people will start to claim that the bear market is still going to happen, as people are in disbelief. That's something you need to realize. Now, when we talk about Ether, Ether has been going up by around 20 to 25%. And in the same period, Optimism has performed 31%. So you can start seeing that the blue chips within the Ethereum ecosystem outperform Ether, as there is a higher potential return on it, which we say is a higher beta play. And that goes as a normal curve. So Ether is the biggest player out there with the lowest performance in terms of upside and therefore the lowest risk. Then you have layer 2s or other ecosystem plays that have bigger return and therefore a higher risk, and those are compulsory for Ethereum to do well. And then you go further on the risk curve where you have smaller apps or dApps that are new and not really proven as of yet. and they likely start to have an underperformance at this point, but once the confidence is being built up, they start to squeeze up quite fastly. So optimism, you want to see that they do better than Ethereum, and that's a sign of strength into the altcoin markets. But firstly, of course, gold-ETH correlation is actually taking place. And then secondly, if you look at that decentralized app thingy with smaller coins that are not really performing as of yet, Aevo, for instance, is up 39% since the period that we started to break out. But given the smaller market cap for this one, or for Renzo or Wormhole, you clearly want to see a higher percentage. So it proves that we're not there yet. But at some point in time, I expect this one to continue to be moving. And that's a good sign. Overall, we can start seeing that the Ether markets are moving the actual altcoin markets. And I said before that if you want to see confirmation of trend switches, then the ones that have been doing well will likely achieve a bigger performance and attract more liquidity, as people tend to move to the ones that have been performing well. And the beauty of that is SUI, which for the third time in 2 years, it breaks the trend. As you can see, it did it again here. It creates a higher high, and after this, it's probably after next week, it's going to look for a new higher low, corrects a little bit, seeking for buying pressure, and then continues to move. On top of that, the heavier the breakout is, and with this one, it's up 60 to 70% since the breakout. The heavier the breakout, the heavier the impulse will be. So given that the first one was really small, the second one started to become bigger, and this one is massive, I truly expect that the upcoming flow in the market is going to be stronger. But this is another indicator that shows and proves that the trend is switching, which on top of that, we have narrative-based plays. So if SUI does well, Walrus and all the applications start to do well. Similarly with Tau, that started to break the trend. As you can see, the lower highs are gone and it's now higher highs and higher lows. It's seeking for a higher low after this. This is a signal that the trend is about to switch and the narrative is getting built up. So what you want to do with these coins is that you would be liking to buy the dip. But if Tau is moving, then all the other AI coins are also moving, which in this case is Fetch or smaller cap coins. That's how a narrative starts to build up. And those are the crypto intrinsic altcoin indicators that show us that a better time is on the horizon. As you can see, there are multiple layers by identifying trends into the markets. They become more complex and macroeconomic factors are becoming way more relevant to take into account when you want to invest into altcoins. However, if you're planning to do so, or if you're having them, the most terrible period for investing into altcoins can be during the periods that you the least thinking that it will happen, that the altcoins will do well. When the markets are complex and you understand the macroeconomic tables, then I don't believe that it's a wise decision to start allocating assets towards gold at this point with its recent price movements, as generally I'm not favoring getting into assets that have been doing so well. You're late to the party. However, on the other hand, if you inverse that, the ones that have been doing extremely bad are the ones that you would like to get into. And yes, you might be too early like I've been, but I'd rather be too early and sit in my positions than going into a position too late, not knowing whether it's the actual trend that we're getting into. And if you're looking to invest into altcoins, then I would advise to look at things like blue chips. As I've shown you, they are outperforming the base asset. The core rule remains to be that Ethereum needs to move first. The ecosystem will follow through, do better, and then when the confidence gets there, the smaller caps will start to heavily outperform the ones that are bigger in a very short period of time. If not, it's not that all of those are going to be moving, but most of the altcoins and most of the indicators are starting to show that the trend is switching. I hope you have enjoyed this update. I'll see you again in the next one. Ciao. During these markets, I'm always looking for opportunities to build my portfolio, and OKX is bringing you an opportunity. They are the first fully licensed exchange in Europe with the lowest fees. And to help you a little bit with your portfolio and to celebrate this milestone, they are giving away up to 50 euros in Bitcoin if you sign up today on the exchange. Signing up can be done within 5 minutes, and if you deposit 100 euros worth of crypto, you'll receive the first 20 euros in Bitcoin. Start rebuilding your portfolio today. Go to the link in the description or scan the QR code and enjoy up to 50 euro in Bitcoin.